My name is Perry Landers, and I am a copywriter for Crisp Advertising Agency. It's a digital ad agency in Raleigh. So I guess I've always really liked writing. I think it was at a young age when I knew that I kind of had a gift for it, and then I really enjoyed doing it. And I remember being a kid in the third grade and going through poetry exercises and writing poetry for class, and really enjoying that, and realizing that I've got a gift at this. And I think that kind of just carried through school. And I got to high school, and I grew up outside of Chicago, and went to a predominantly white high school. And just my experience as a black kid in a predominantly white high school was tough. And so at the time I was on the school newspaper. That was one of my courses. And just through my experience with the jokes and just kind of being misunderstood by my classmates, it kind of came to this point where it's like, man, I've got to say something. And so I used the newspaper as an outlet to write an article about just my experience in a predominantly white high school. We went to a pretty big 7A high school, 2,000 kids, and I was one of 4 or 5 black kids in my graduating class. And so put that out in the school paper, and I got a really positive response. And people were like, man, your words have power. Like you're helping me see some stuff that I never thought about before. And so I think that was kind of the point where I was like, man, I think I could see myself, writing for the future. And so I went to UNC, went to the journalism school there. And after I graduated from UNC, went on staff with the college ministry. But through the college ministry, was able to do some creative work. And kind of through that process, knew I wanted to kind of come full circle and start writing again. So I was on staff with Campus Outreach College Ministry here in Raleigh-Durham for 4.5 years. So first couple of years I was on campus at NC State, so leading Bible studies, discipleship groups, doing campus ministry, life on life with students there. And then after my 2 years there, I went and worked in our office where I was the media and communications director. So I was responsible for everything from the website design, doing promos and promotional stuff for our events, shooting videos, and kind of using different avenues of communication to kind of fuel the ministry. So I was kind of behind the scenes, just helping what our campus staff were doing on campus, and doing whatever I could to help them be efficient in the ministry. So yeah, so I think when you look at the news and you kind of see the direction that our country has taken, just with the the heightened racial tensions, and you think about the police shootings or even the shootings in Charleston, and I think the way that that's kind of impacted me and my circle is, I see stuff like that, and being an African American male, and seeing these things, it really just impacts me in a way that it doesn't impact the people around me. And so there's people they see the news and they hurt, but they don't truly, and they couldn't truly understand what it's like to be black and to be afraid. And especially after like the Charleston shooting, like I work in a church, and for me to walk into a church and not feel safe, like I'm walking into rooms and like looking around the corner, and like nobody really understands what that's like. And so that's been really tough, just to kind of have to deal with that, and to look around and nobody really gets that. And it's especially tough when I think about like my father or my sister or my mother, and they kind of they feel the same way, and they're hurt and they're angry with what they see. And there's only so much that I can do to kind of comfort them and to help them, and kind of us as a family process that together. But I will say, man, I've been really encouraged just by the people who are really close to me in my life. And even though they are Caucasian, I feel like they've done a really good job of reaching out and being like, man, I can't understand what you're going through, or what it looks like for you to look on news and see somebody who is getting shot by the police. I can't understand that, but I want to understand that, because I care about you as a person and as a brother. And I've had some of my close friends take me out to dinner just to ask me questions. I think that's gone a long way, both for me and for the people that are kind of in my circle of influence. It's kind of funny. So, growing up as a kid, whenever I would go to school dances, because again, I grew up in a predominantly white culture, 2% African American. Whenever I would go to these school dances, my dad would always be like, "Hey, this girl that you're going with, I know she's white. Does her parents know that you're African American?" And I'd always used to get like real mad at him, like, "Doesn't matter, Dad." But I think, kind of looking back at it now, like that was just kind of his way of protecting me. And kind of left high school, I started to see, okay, well, there are people who don't approve of the interracial dating or interracial relationships. And I've had girlfriends whose parents refused to meet me because I was African American and they didn't approve of their daughter dating a black man. And so in that situation, man, it was hard. It was tough. But I think there was just a lot of grace in that to see, at the time that, one, their, I guess, apprehension or their dislike of her dating me was not anything to do with me. It was their idea of what, a black man dating their daughter was. So it had nothing to do with me. It was just they had this image of what an African American is, and that's how they were judging me. And so, I tried to fight through that lens to be like, it's not personal. That's, what they have to work through, and I don't think that that's right, the way that they're viewing this, but, that has nothing to do with me. And at the time, I told her the same thing, which was that, I believe when you look at it through the lens of the Bible, that, a relationship that, whether it's black or white or, anything else like that, that a relationship like that can tell the truth about God, which is, he doesn't, discriminate based on color. In fact, it talks about him coming to tear down the dividing wall of hostility between two people groups. And so an interracial relationship gets to showcase a part of God's redemption in the world that, other relationships don't necessarily get to showcase. And so, if I'm believing the truth about what God's word says, then, it's, an interracial relationship can be a glorious thing. Man, so if I had advice for the younger generation, for young black men and women, and I think that this has kind of been the big thing that I'm starting to see now in my life is just the reason I feel like I'm able to kind of sit here and to process and articulate kind of some of these things and to have a positive outlook on what it means to be black in America, even if it is, tough, is because I think I've had people like my father and people like, pastors when I was younger who, they stepped in and they taught me what it meant to be black, and they taught me how to behave and how to handle myself. And so I would say for the younger generation, if we want to see this continue, like, we're going to have to do that for the people that kind of come up behind us. We're going to have to step in. We're going to have to be, role models and influencers to those people that are around us and to the people that are coming up underneath us, because I think that changes. I've had strong male figures in my life, and so I know what it means to handle, situations where, I feel discriminated against, or, to, have a girlfriend whose parents don't like me. I've got people who have taught me how to deal with those things, and so that's the advice I would say is, if you don't have somebody that's like that in your life, find somebody that's in your life that can give you that influence, and then, do that to the next generation, because I think that we've got to look out for one another.